In A Course in Miracles, it is told that if we want to learn something, we have to teach it. So I will try to explain how I understand what A Course in Miracles teaches about the right perception. There is actually no right perception according to A Course in Miracles, but about how to basically escape this dream. So in the dream, we are making things and not creating because we perceive lack and then we make things. But that cannot be true because we don't lack anything. So making in itself is false. It is told in A Course in Miracles that creation happens through us willing with God. That's the only way to create. The way to start seeing through the dream so that it starts dissolving is not allowing the mind to stop at the form, at the image, but going beyond it. So whenever you're speaking with someone, if you just look at the image and you speak to the image of a person, you're basically going to think that you are the image. And that's why you have to extend beyond that image into the light. Start perceiving, start understanding that there is light beyond that image. And the way that can be done, this can be done, is through perceiving anything of light in a person, any loving action, any positive thing that they say or do. See that there is a light behind it. That's why this person is doing this positive thing. So in A Course in Miracles, it's just taught to extend through the mind so that you are helping to dissolve the dream. In opposition to this is projection. So extension is what unites us. We are extending, we are seeing through the image into the light, and we are the light. So this is basically, we are helping to undo the dream. But if we are projecting, if we don't like something about the person, we judge them negatively, then what we are doing is we are as though throwing something away from us, something like we don't like something, we judge against, so we project it, we don't like it. And so we keep it actually, and we keep ourselves in prison. So when we see people as unworthy, bad, what we are doing, if we are judging like that, we are imprisoning ourselves. There is no right judgment for us because we were not created to judge. We are very poor judges because to judge correctly would involve knowing total past of whatever we are judging, knowing the future outcomes of what they are doing. That's what would enable us to judge correctly. But since we are unable to do it, we should leave judgment only to God, or we can see higher self judge through me. Judgment, it is told in A Course in Miracles, is what keeps this reality true in our minds, but it's actually not true. But through judging, it is told in A Course in Miracles, we are convincing ourselves that we are creators of this reality, and it's up to us what the reality is. But when we drop judgment and we really try to see through the higher self, that's when we start dissolving the dream. So these are concepts that are complicated to understand. That's why I'm telling them to you, so that it also helps me to get it. And these are important concepts to grasp from a course, because some people totally miss it, that they don't even see them in the course. Let's see. I will read out some things. Okay, let's start from, I will read out the chapter, The Unshakable Foundation, which explains what I mean. It's essential that this whole authority problem Or maybe I should read from another chapter because it talks about the wrong authority. It's chapter 3:10, Judgment and the Authority Problem. We have already discussed the last judgment in some, though in insufficient detail. After the last judgment, there isn't any more. This is symbolic only in the sense that everybody is much better off without judgment. When the Bible says, "Judge not that ye be not judged," it merely means that if you judge the reality of others at all, you will be unable to avoid judging your own. The choice to judge rather than know has been the cause of the loss of peace. The choice to judge rather than know has been the cause of a loss of peace. And judgment can come in so many ways. For example, even yesterday or the day before yesterday, I was watching some videos and one lady, she was wearing a crown and I'm like, what on earth? And this is actually a judgment. And then the same day, I was reading a chapter saying that if you laugh at others, you debase them. So it's wrong judgment. So it's so important not to judge anything. And as I said, judgment can be so subtle. You would think, oh, it's just like an innocent laughter at something. But I judged that image. And so by judging that image, I'm imprisoning myself because it's something that I debased. So it's projection. And so I will see the same in myself, something that is debased. As we see others, so we will see ourselves. Judgment is the process on which perception but not knowledge rests. We covered this before in terms of selectivity. Evaluation was set at that time to be perception's obvious prerequisite. Judgment always involves rejection. It is not an ability which emphasizes only the positive aspects of what is judged, whether it be in or out of the self. However, what has been perceived and rejected or judged and found wanting remains in the unconscious because it has been perceived. One of the illusions from which human perception suffers is that what it perceives and judges against has no effect. This cannot be true unless you also believe that what your judgment vetoes does not exist. You evidently do not believe this, or you would not have judged against it. It does not really matter in the end whether you judge right or wrong. Either way, you are placing your belief in the unreal. It doesn't matter whether you judge right or wrong. You're still placing your belief in the unreal. What are we judging? We are judging the world of dreams. So in the Course in Miracles, it is told that the foundational error that we made but we hide from ourselves is the belief that we created ourselves. So when we split, the first split of the mind was consciousness. And to be conscious of something, we needed to perceive something. So the world and the bodies came into being, and we identified with the body. And so deep inside our minds, we believe we created ourselves. The body is the image of self. We believe this is us. And this is the foundational error. So when we judge, we maintain this error of perceiving ourselves as self-created and thinking that it's up to us what to see, what to experience. But actually, the reality is not created by us. This is a dream that we projected without God, and it doesn't actually exist. It's a dream. But the true reality is created by God, and it's not up to us how to view it. It just is. So as long as we judge, we will deep inside believe that we have created ourselves. And since this is an error, we will just continue living in this dream. But when we stop judging and we start allowing the higher self to see through us, we will start to dissolve the dream, to undo the separation, until we understand that we have not created ourselves, that God created us, and God created the kingdom. And that's what we will eventually see, so to speak. It won't be actual sight, it would be knowledge. But again, it is told in A Course in Miracles, it's not really even knowledge. It just is. It's more like being. So it does not really matter in the end whether you judge right or wrong. Either way, you're placing your belief in the unreal. This cannot be avoided in any type of judgment, because it implies the belief that reality is yours to choose from. You have no idea of the tremendous release and deep peace that comes from meeting yourself and your brothers totally without judgment. If you will look back at the earlier remarks about what you and your brothers are, you will realize that judging them in any way is really without meaning. In fact, their meaning is lost to you precisely because you are judging them. So when we are judging anyone, their meaning is lost to us. We just created a dream about them. It's not who they are, but it's impossible for us to see that as long as we judge them. All uncertainty comes from a totally fallacious belief that you're under the coercion of judgment. You do not need it to organize your life, and you certainly don't need it to organize yourself. So basically it says that we don't need to judge anything in truth. When you look upon knowledge, all judgment is automatically suspended, and this is the process that enables recognition to replace perception. When you look upon knowledge, all judgment is automatically suspended, and this is the process that enables recognition to replace perception. You start recognizing rather than perceiving. You're very fearful of everything you have perceived and refused to accept. You believe that because you have refused to accept it, you have lost control over it. This is why you see it in nightmares or in pleasant disguise in what seem to be happier dreams. Nothing that you have refused to accept can be brought into awareness. It does not follow it is dangerous, but it does follow that you have made it dangerous. When you feel tired, it's merely because you have judged yourself as capable of being tired. When you laugh at someone, this is the passage, you're singularly likely to laugh at others, if only because you cannot tolerate being more debased than others. All of this does make you tired because it's essentially disheartening. You're not really capable of being tired, but you are very capable of wearing yourself. The strain of constant judgment is virtually intolerable. It is a curious thing that any ability which is so debilitating should be so deeply cherished. But there is a good reason for this. This, however, depends upon what you mean by good. If you wish to be the author of reality, which is totally impossible anyway, then you will insist on holding on to judgment. You will also use the term with considerable fear and believe that judgment will someday be used against you. To whatever extent it is used against you, it is due only to your belief in its efficacy as a weapon of defense for your own authority. The issue of authority is really a question of authorship. When an individual has an authority problem, it is always because he believes he is the author of himself and resents his own projection of this delusion onto others. He then perceives the situation as one in which two people are literally fighting for his own authorship. This is the fundamental error of all those who believe they have usurped the power of God. I'm skipping some sentences. God's sons were given their own true authorship, but they preferred to remain anonymous when they chose to separate themselves from their author. Only those who give over all desire to reject can know their own rejection is impossible. So when you're not judging anything, when you're not judging against anyone or anything, you have not usurped the power of God, but you have lost it. Fortunately, when you lose something, this does not mean that the something has gone. It merely means that you do not know where it is. Existence does not depend on your ability to identify it or even to place it. It is perfectly possible to look on reality without judgment and merely know it is there. By knowing this, you are not doubting it is reality at all. So basically, it teaches us we don't even need judgment to organize our lives. One of the lessons in A Course in Miracles is I rest in God. Also, in A Course in Miracles, it is told that if you do this only one function of forgiveness, you will be totally taken care of. So we don't need to actually do anything. Everything will be provided for us. We will be guided. But that's when we really do the forgiveness, when we are no longer in two minds, but our mind becomes whole. Our purpose becomes one, only to forgive. Whatever happens, you forgive. So you're basically actively involved in dissolving the dream. So your function is healing. You are undoing that which is not true. And so you are staying in the light, and therefore you're abiding by the laws of God. And so you are protected by the laws of God, which are, of course, higher than the laws of this world. And so you have nothing to worry about. You will be provided for and you will be protected. Peace is natural heritage of the Son. Everyone is free to refuse to accept his inheritance, but he is not free to establish what his inheritance is. The problem which everyone must decide is the fundamental question of his own authorship. The fundamental question, the problem which everyone must decide is the fundamental question of his own authorship. All fear comes ultimately and sometimes by way of very devious routes from the denial of authorship, that we are created by God. That's where fear stems from thinking that we created ourselves. So we projected ourselves. The mind has projected itself out of heaven into this dream world. It started perceiving rather than knowing. And so as I said, to perceive, something has to be there to be perceived. And so the world and the body sprang into being. This is the creation of self, the false creation that gives fear. The offense is never God, but only to the denier himself. He has thrown away the reason for his own peace and sees himself only in pieces. The strange perception is an authority problem. It is also the basis for castration anxiety, since both forms of error are fundamentally the same. You cannot find peace, and I forgot to tell, I'm reading today from a Circle of Atonement book. You cannot find peace while this authority problem continues. But the truth, and that's why in A Course in Miracles, it is emphasized a lot that you really need to understand that you are created by God. And actually today's lesson of mine is forgiveness is the key to happiness. I will awaken from the dream that I am mortal, fallible, and full of sin, and know I am the perfect Son of God. This is emphasized so much in A Course in Miracles that we really, really must understand that we are created by God, and then all our problems will dissolve. If we feel any kind of fear, It's because of the authorship problem, because we believe we have created ourselves, that it's up to us to change ourselves. So we become unstable. Anything could happen to us. It's a changeable. The body can fall sick, can die. Anything can happen to it. So of course, it's very fearful. But when we recognize true authorship of us, and we understand we are the spirit and that we were created by God, then how can we be afraid of anything? Then the dream starts dissolving. But the truth is still that there is no problem about this, about the authority. There is no one who does not feel that he is imprisoned in some way. If this has been the result of his own free will, he must regard his will as if it were not free, or the obviously circular reasoning of his own position would be quite apparent. Free will must lead to freedom. Judgment always imprisons. Judgment always imprisons because it separates segments of reality according to the highly unstable scales of desire. So by judging, we cannot perceive reality as it is. We are picking and choosing what to like, what to dislike. We cannot see the reality the way that it really is. And you might have heard some meditators explaining that, and I had those experiences also, like an Eckhart Tolle, for example, had it for maybe years. I don't know, maybe now he no longer has it. Not sure, but he told about his experience of staying in parks, and he just perceived everything like heaven. And that's what happens when we stop judging. We perceive everything the way that it is. So we perceive a good, a happy dream and not the ego nightmare when we're picking and choosing what to perceive, thinking that it's up to us what the reality is. Wishes are not facts by definition. To wish is to imply that willing is not sufficient. Again, willing is done with God, wishing is done with ego. However, no one really believes that what is wished is as real as what is willed. Instead of seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, say, will ye first the kingdom of heaven? And you have said, I know what I am, and I will to accept my own inheritance. So the book in many ways tries to help us to dissolve this false dream that we call reality. And it's so interesting that we call it reality, as though to convince ourselves that it's real. So through forgiveness, through understanding our true authorship, through non-judgment, we start dissolving this dream through no negative reaction to what's happening. Because why would you react to a dream when we really understand it's a dream? We will no longer perceive things as problematic because we as spirit don't have any problems. So we will not perpetuate the dream through giving it our attention and energy. We'll just forgive, let go, forgive, let go. No judgment, just seeing everything through the Holy Spirit. Also, when talking to others, we are not stopping by their image and thus imprisoning ourselves in these bodies, but we are extending the mind beyond the image into the light that is present in every human being. Although in some people light is small, but it's always there. So focusing on that light within them causes the extension of the mind, which causes the dream to start dissolving rather than projection, seeing what we don't like, which causes the imprisonment of us in the bodies and them in the bodies, and maintenance of this dream. So hopefully you understood what I have discussed in this video, because the topics are more advanced, but they're very important to understand. And some people, they totally skip through these when they read a course in miracles. So I hope that this benefited you. Thank you for watching. Take care.